This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Donovan went to the lane, locked him. Only pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers have tied the longest winning streak in franchise history with 13. This time it was Donovan Mitchell's turn to take closing duties as, Darius Garland and the rest of the team got to take a little bit of a back seat. They survived what looked like a obvious potential trap game with the Philadelphia Sixers missing a lot of their key guys. Jared McCain went absolutely nuts for Philly. And to help me break it all down and talk about where the Cavs stand right now is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, brother. 13-0 feels nice. Justin, I have a riddle for you. What do the Cleveland Cavaliers never hold but hand out to everyone they meet?
Is it L's?
It's L's, brother. 13-0. Just unbelievable. Sixth team in NBA history to ever do this. I remember I saw someone tweet. I might have retweeted it the other day. Of just that the records that the Cavs have been breaking aren't the in the non-LeBron category records. Their first since without LeBron since blank. First, this thing excluding LeBron. No, they're just breaking NBA records, brother. They're setting NBA unprecedented territory. No, was it beautiful? Absolutely not. Was it yet another kind of win they had to scrap their way through? Yeah, it was. And I do think, you're seeing the heavy legs. You're seeing this team kind of have to fight their way to wins, pretty much ever since the second half of that Warriors game. But, that's what teams that, win the amount of games we're hoping that the Cavaliers win this season do, is they find ways to win games where things aren't quite going exactly how they want. And again, they're able to kind of lean on a different source. And Donovan Mitchell scores 11 straight in the fourth quarter to ice the game after, a pretty slow offensive outing up until that point. He found his legs, iced the game. Cavs get to go home with yet another win.
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of year, or the time of year, I should say, where you do see teams kind of get those schedule losses, where you see the fatigue kick in. Teams usually take preseason pretty lightly, at least relative to how they used to approach it in the past. They understand the wear and tear of an NBA season. They ramp guys up slowly, and it takes some time to get back into that NBA conditioning. And, now we're at that point where I think guys are in full game time shape, but you're running into those situations where, okay, when you look at the stretch that the Cavs just came off of prior to this Philly game, that's 4 games in 6 nights. That's exhausting. They traveled, between those games as well. There's just so little time off. And that's when you get, these kind of losses where, you came out just a little bit flat. Someone on the other team, like, an AJ Green or Jose Alvarado or a Jared McCain has a really hot shooting night. And that's the type of thing that can doom you. That's how you have a team as good as the Boston Celtics lose to the Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young last night. These are the type of things that happen. And you know what? At some point this season, odds are
they're going to get got eventually.
It's going to happen to the Cavs at some point. But right now, until it actually does, the only thing I can think
this team will never lose again.
They're not going to lose again, baby. The good times keep rolling.
What does that drop from?
Shorzy. You gotta watch it.
Shorzy.
It's on Hulu. It's great. Honestly, the fact that they're getting, contributions across the board and guys are stepping up when other guys don't have it is what makes this team so special. They're not built around 1 or 2 all-star talents. They have 4, and that gives them just a floor that's higher than most NBA teams.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's not just the stepping up in the form of scoring. Donovan Mitchell just misses his first career triple-double, and boy, was he looking for it, down the stretch. But, he just misses his first career triple-double. He's not one of these kind of stars that typically is ganking a ton of rebounds, and getting a lot of free ones, which we've seen in the past. So I think as a result, he generally lets guys like Evan and Jarrett eat up a lot of the defensive glass. And on a night where I just thought they needed energy, I thought he really attacked the defensive glass. There were a lot of plays where, it was really all Jared or Evan could do on a given possession to box out Gershon Yabusele and, just keep that bear away from the ball. And Donnie's the one high pointing it while they're fighting. Like, I thought his effort on the boards was actually notable. Sometimes you'll see a guard have 8, 9, 10, 11 rebounds, and if you really watch, they actually weren't rebounding that well. They were just getting a lot of free ones. I don't think that was the case in this one. I thought Donovan was excellent in really all phases of the game, except as a scorer until he decided to take the game over as a scorer. I mean, he also has 9 assists to 0 turnovers. I mean, I just thought it was a really complete game for him. He also was pretty good on the defensive end. Like, I don't know. I was really geeked to see. I felt like this was one of the first games of the year where we really, really needed Donovan just to take over for us and set the tone in 5 or 6 different ways. And it was cool to see him meet that moment.
Yeah, I thought it was really needed. Every single one of those 3-pointers kind of allowed me to exhale, which was really nice because I was still feeling a little tense. I was like, this feels like the one where a weird bounce or two could kind of make things go the other direction. And, that swing of Caleb Martin hitting a 3 with his foot on the line and then Mitchell hitting another 3-pointer. The fact that it stayed a 2-possession game and then Donnie was able to extend it to 7, like that was just such a big moment for them. And I agree with you. I thought his effort on the glass and his effort defensively really stood out because when you have tired legs, which I think the Cavs clearly had in this game.
I mean, this is one of the first times I felt like more than one guy kind of talked about a post game, like 13 games in 22 days. We're getting a little fried with all the travel they've been doing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and you have, Evan Mobley, who is questionable to play tonight, playing through illness. Jared Allen's been dealing with what he's got going on with his leg. Like, there's a lot of kind of factors going into that there. And, Philly came out, they're kind of forced by who's available to play small ball, and I thought they played a really scrappy, hard game. I think they deserve a lot of credit. Whether it's, Yabu attacking the glass, how physical he can be. I liked the minutes that Bone had given them, or Bona. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I like the
sounds right.
I like the minutes that he gave them off the bench. I thought he was really kind of a physical force in getting 9 rebounds in those 17 minutes. Like they were really attacking. They were trying to generate those extra possessions. They were trying to win the math game of getting those 3-pointers up. That's how you need to play when you're shorthanded, and I thought they did a really good job of that. So having someone like Donovan Mitchell, who obviously our best scorer by a mile, our best player, having him kind of set the tone of, all right, I'm going to attack the defensive glass, and I think that's the proper way to describe how he was approaching those defensive rebounds. I'm going to also, be aggressive defensively. I'm going to try to, let's get us going. Let's up the energy level. I thought he did a really good job, and it kind of showed his leadership for him to do that in that way. So even though he wasn't shooting well until, he dropped those late shots, I felt good about the overall effort from him tonight, even though, as you mentioned, there were a couple moments where, it was Rondo selfishness, where it's like, you're so unselfish that it loops back around to self-indulgent, and like you are passing up an open rebound.
At my old sports network, I used to call it a Rondo assist when you'd be getting in an argument with someone and someone would come in to try to like help you in the argument, but it wasn't. But they would derail it, or like, it was like, who is that for? Who is that for? Because it didn't help me. Didn't help me score.
I don't know if you saw the ending of the Heat Pistons game last night, where Spo called a timeout when the game was tied. They didn't have any timeouts left, and then the camera panned to Jalen Rose, making like just the most shocked face at calling a timeout with no timeouts. I needed the same thing to happen with like someone in the Philly crowd of passing up a wide open layup under that basket. I think that was the exact.
Donovan at least had the good grace to be miserable about it.
That's right. And then he came back, hit the shots later, and was like, all right, unselfishness out the window. I'm going to close this one.
Well, that's its own form of unselfishness. You kind of talked about it after the game, but I think you're spot on with the way he attacked the boards, the way he pushed. I thought that second quarter, where they only score 17, that was. And we've seen a couple of these stinker quarters, which is what normal NBA offenses have, is they have every now and again you have a game where you just can't get the ball in the basket, or you get out of a rhythm and you don't get to 20 points in the quarter. We just haven't seen that much to start the year. But it was noted on social media by a few Cavs fans, like, hey, they're not running. They are just, Philly is keeping them in the half court, and they're having to execute for every bucket pretty much through the entire first half. And I thought that's where the value of his attacks on the defensive boards was really, really seen and felt, because Philly was, he would grab the board and just go, and they were getting the cross matches, they were getting the kind of looks. Obviously Darius catching with a destabilized defense because Donnie was pushing, like that kind of stuff just made things easier. And then they ended up scoring 64 in the second half, and Philly just did not have the horses to keep up.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job kind of signaling that one of the things we want to look at is when the game is tight at the end of the games, when they're tired, how does the decision making go? Like, do they stick with what's gotten them there? Do they stick with the ball movement? Do they generate good looks? And I honestly, I thought the first quarter was kind of encouraging. Like, they missed a lot of open looks. I thought there was a few times where they could have gone to the free throw line, but the rest were just letting contact go both ways. Philly didn't shoot their free throw until the second half. Like, sometimes that happens. And, that for them to come out and score 31, I was still feeling really good at that point, because I'm sitting there thinking, all right, they're on pace to score 124 if this keeps up. The shots aren't falling, but they're still running their offense. They're still generating quality looks. And I don't think Philadelphia can continue to score at that rate. Then the second quarter comes around, and I just felt like the movement went down, that they weren't generating as good of looks. It was just kind of felt like a slog. They weren't playing with pace overall. And then to once again see them kind of, whether it's the coaches pointing it out, whether it's them recognizing it themselves. But I just thought, the effort to start the third quarter was fantastic. It started on the defensive end. They got out and ran. They didn't allow that 6-point lead to become a 12. Instead, they come out and they take the lead themselves. That's the type of stuff that really, really good teams do to, recognize when those bad habits creep in and get back to kind of your fundamentals. Because I think at some point this season, things are going to go poorly for the Cavs. They're going to likely have a losing streak at some point. It's a Sam
Don't
Presti
put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
No, it's a Sam Presti quote that, at least twice a season, the sky is going to be falling. Like, it's going to happen at some point. But I do think the fact that the Cavs have this North Star of this 13-game sample where, they've won in a variety of different ways. They know how they need to be playing. Like, I think that this kind of muscle memory is really, really damn important for them to establish early on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was just looking at the box score, by the way. Was this Karas's first bad game of the year? Like, maybe the Knicks game?
Yeah, honestly, and it's funny, like one of the big differences in that, first half and really that second quarter was this was the first time that they didn't really get a bench punch, right?
No.
Like, Sam Merrill's out in this game. I thought Ty Jerome, his first shift was largely ineffective. He had a turnover, kind of got jammed up on a couple drives, and even though they didn't result in turnovers, just didn't create an advantage. Karras didn't play necessarily well, and George missed a fair number of open shots. Like, that's one of the big differences there, because when you look on the night, the 12 minutes that the starting lineup played together, they outscored Philly by 11. But that lineup was largely good. But what's made the Cavs so dominant kind of throughout this winning streak is the starting lineup plays really well. And then when teams go to their benches, and especially as they've played some of this weaker competition, we're keeping an elite ball handler, an elite big on the court. And not only that, we have guys coming off the bench that are performing at a high level. And, it's not to be unexpected that guys coming in off the bench have bad games. But, I thought, just kind of the timing of it where, Mobley and Allen are dealing with some stuff. Merrill's out of the lineup. It was just kind of one of those unfortunate situations where they didn't all necessarily play well in the first half. I actually thought, Jerome obviously had a better second half, and outside of, missing shots, I thought Karras played hard in the second half as well and earned in that spot in the closing lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say bad, I just mean he hasn't had any, these kind of 2 for 8 kind of stinkers this year. Where you just can't get the ball in the bucket.
We're grading on a curve.
Yeah,
we're grading on a curve with these guys.
So yeah, it's just it feels like I feel like the fellas are certainly flirting with the streak ending over the last couple weeks and or the last couple games, sorry. But with that said, it does feel like a nice kind of reset's coming for them where, they get a couple games at home. They get 4 days in Cleveland where, get to sleep in their own beds, get to kind of reset. They've got an NBA Cup game on Friday. I don't know, man. I feel like the last 2 games were the spots where I really thought they were in danger. And man, I really want that 15-0 heading into Boston, Justin.
Yeah.
I want it.
Yeah, I really do think getting through this stretch was important because they had 8 games in the first 13 days of November. That 4 and 6 in particular, I thought was brutal. But you look at the rest of November, they have 7 games in 17 days. In a week from now, they have 3 days off in a row. As you said, they're going to be home after tonight. They're going to be home until they travel to Boston, which will likely be on the 18th. But, that's 4 solid days at home. That's a really, really nice situation to be in.
Bro, can I tell you, has there ever been a trappier trap game than November 20th at home versus New Orleans after you play Boston on a back-to-back and you have 3 days off after this hellacious schedule?
Here's my paranoid game. I'm very worried about the Charlotte game. I think that's a trap game.
That is a trap game for sure.
You have the NBA Cup game against Chicago. I think they're going to get up for that one.
Which I think they care about.
I think they care about that too. You're going to be really focused on that one. And then you just have this game against Charlotte at home and you play Boston. It's like the classic look ahead game. It doesn't count for as much outside of, just being a regular season game. LaMelo Ball's been playing fantastic. That Brandon Miller is capable of big nights. They've got some talent there. I actually do like the young guys on that team. I can just see that kind of being one of those trap games. But, that's the fun thing about an NBA season is you're playing against the season as much as you are playing against individual competition. And we've seen quite a few winning streaks throughout our time doing this podcast. Teams get up. Once you get to a certain number, you're getting every team's best shot. They want to be the team that ends the winning streak. How much fun have we had when the Cavs have been on the other end of this, where they've ended a winning streak of a really good team, or a team that's on a roll and they got this play spoiler. That's the type of stuff that coaches of these developing teams and these teams on the fringe of a play-in picture, that's the type of stuff that they get their team excited about throughout a regular season, because it is 82 games and it's all right. If we can get this win, that's something that we can build off of and use for momentum for the rest of the season. So I do think that this is a really good test for the Cavs to be continuing to problem solve as they get the best punch from all of these teams.
Yeah, man. It's been interesting because I feel like at various times through the streak, I've kind of seen, these other kind of famous streaks kind of factor in, a few of the Warriors or Heat blitzes, the bench mob game against Chicago, who I thought of. Remember that Houston Rockets streak when Yao and T-Mac got hurt And like Dikembe Mutombo, 42-year-old Dikembe Mutombo was like anchoring the defense, and like they were just stealing wins however they could. And like I feel like I've just kind of seen them win every which way. There's been the team wins, there's been the bench mob wins. Now we've got a couple super duper star wins. And like that's how you do it. Is you can't, because you're just not going to be able to reliably do anything. I mean, Kenny goes to another weird bench mob lineup where he's playing Darius, Craig Porter, and Ty Jerome together in the second quarter, and it doesn't really work. Like, it's not a disaster by any means, I guess, but it didn't, it certainly didn't flip the game like the other bench mob lineup did, where, so like, you can't play the same song over and over and over again and expect to win in an 82-game season. So the fact that they've been able to pull these wins all these different ways, it's just so fun.
It really is. And, again, I'm reminded of how long these seasons are, because with 7 games left in November, if they go 5-2 the rest of the month, I think we could all agree that's a great start. But that would mean that they were 18-2. Know what they did last year? Had of an 18-2 stretch, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that can happen. But, I think the biggest difference is obviously they're starting off the year this
starting
way.
the season like that, and as opposed to doing it during the dog days of February, January, February, March, when teams are starting to get worn down, starting to lose their seasons, starting to think about things like draft positioning or load management. Like Cavs, and let's be fair, Cavs have had some great injury luck on the other side of the floor in some of these games. But like, you're right, it does. Maybe it isn't more statistically meaningful to start a season this way, but like it feels more meaningful.
Well, the other thing is they're not digging their way out of a hole, right? Like, because the Cavs were in a hole to start last year. I think the how matters a whole lot as well, because, the regular season detractors will say, well, like this team won however many games, and that shows that the regular season doesn't matter. But for people that are actually really paying attention to, the ebbs and flows of a team's season, and are looking for, okay, how do they do in specific matchups? How are they getting their wins? What are they building on? Are they able to take what successes they have and build off of those? Or do those good habits regress? Like, that's the kind of stuff that really matters. Like, when we previewed the Knicks series, we had a lot of disclaimers on, guys missed those individual matchups, but the things that we pointed to of, hey, this didn't go well in the regular season. Like, they really struggled on the offensive glass against them. As good as the offense had been throughout the regular season, and it had been a top 8 offense, it was performed worse against the Knicks than just about any other team. That's the kind of micro stuff that you want to learn from a regular season. And, let's say they do go 18-2. Let's say that's how this season starts. I think what you've seen...
Pretty pessimistic to assume this team's going to lose twice in 7 games.
Right. Like, let's just say for the sake of argument that that's how this goes. I think the foundation that we have of, okay, Evan Mobley's being used as a playmaker. We have this version of Darius Garland. Donovan doesn't have to work nearly as hard as he has in the past. You're getting a great version of Jared Allen. The bench is contributing. What we've seen out of Ty Jerome. The how matters so much more than the record. But at the end of the day, the record still matters too, because your positioning, where you end up, can really dictate how far you go in the playoffs. It can dictate, the Cavs have an amazing home court advantage. They have some of the best fans in the NBA. That arena is absolutely like playing a basketball game in a jet engine when it gets going. Like, it's a lot of fun. If you have 4 games at home in every single series, that could be the difference maker for a young team that's trying to pull an upset on a team like the Boston Celtics. So
yeah, and just ensuring you're on the other side of the bracket from them is really valuable,
Right. So, and the other big difference is last year, the Eastern Conference got off to a great start. You had, the Orlando Magic that was at the top of the standings. Right now, like, some of those teams that you thought were going to be there, Philly, Orlando, Milwaukee, even the New York Knicks who lost to the Chicago Bulls tonight. Like, those teams have already accumulated a lot of losses. So the Cavs have really put themselves in a good position where they can be patient with injuries. They can take a conservative approach. And when you look at, the minutes that these guys are individually playing as well, and the job that Kenny's done with this rotation, it just feels like a really, really smart approach. And probably, like, honestly, the way that Kenny is deploying the rotation probably is a large part of why they're 13-0, on top of the way that these guys have played individually.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, because they're consistently playing 10 guys, you're consistently giving the opportunity for one of those 10 to, have a moment, have a 5-minute stretch where they really are impacting the game. Like Niang had a great stretch against the Bulls, where the floater game was really working. He was using glass really well and just got us a couple buckets when we really, really needed them. Obviously Ty Jerome has had his moments. Obviously Sam Merrill has had his moments. And when you're playing only 8 guys and you're kind of just crunching it down, well, your chances of one of those, you're just losing, throws at the dartboard in the end. And you're just kind of relying on, instead of 2 out of 10 guys to have it going, you're looking for, 2 out of 8. And while, obviously coaches, there's a reason successful coaches have run short rotations, like there are teams, there are systems that are better constructed to just play 8 guys. But for what this Cavs team is, and the way Kenny is coaching them, the way they are all plugging into the system, it does feel like it just is giving them opportunities to find a spark where they otherwise might not have looked.
Yeah, I mean, in a war of attrition, your ability to conserve energy is really important. And, conserving energy is important in life. That's why tools like Zoom AI Companion are so handy. Because only you can do your best work, but Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Carter, one funny thing I wanted to note this year, and again, this goes to what I was saying about, the how mattering so much more, really kind of looking at what's occurring on the court and paying attention beyond just the box score. Because without a doubt, it is crystal clear to me that the Cavs are playing with more tempo. They are playing with more intention within their offense. I love the way that the starting lineup has been playing. But would you believe that the core 4 is actually playing at a slower pace than they were last year by almost a full possession?
Yeah, because I don't know if I care. Like, I think, like, I just look at at what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing them generate better stuff with more intention. Again, I go back to, I pulled a stat for my appearance on Jason Temp's pod, where they're still going into tonight's game. They were 29th in the NBA in passes per game. But I want to say you've deleted my stats in our rundown because you rightfully cleared things out. But I want to say they were 6th in points created by assist.
Yes, that's correct. I listened to it today,
and I think the tempo matters more than the pace. That is just, I thought you made that distinction early in the year. It's the best distinction you've made all season, as far as I'm concerned, because there's so many things that are going to affect pace. There's so many, literally you can only control half of it. And I think that as long as the offense continues to perform this way, then I think that's all the data I need. And again, just seeing Donovan sprinting the ball down court after getting a defensive rebound, you can't tell me that's not having a meaningful effect, even if they have to reset and they end up using 17 or 18 seconds on the shot clock on that particular possession, because they started with an advantage.
And I think the same is true when you look at some of these end of game possessions, because at the end of games, teams
they never felt like they scored consistently well at the end of games last year.
It's never felt good. The clutch offense has never felt good with this team. And, at the end of games, you're not going to be running tons of action, right? Like we saw this even when Ty was coaching. Like, you want to kind of mitigate the risk of a turnover because they're so devastating in those situations. So you're not going to run like the most complex actions unless it's coming out of an ATO. Sometimes you are, going to call a 1-4 flat. Sometimes you are going to call, a high pick and roll and really space out the floor. But even when it's the same kind of actions, I still feel like it's happening earlier in the shot clock. Like you look at any of those Donnie possessions, if he got walled off, if he got jammed up by the defense, if there was a blitz, there is still enough time on that shot clock to give up the ball to attack, a blitzing defense that's overcompensating on any one given player and generating a good look. Like I think that's been a big part of their success. And to me, it's encouraging that once again, we have a situation where the Cavs are in clutch minutes. They very clearly have tired legs. We've seen this time and time again, and they're still getting good looks in those situations. Like that's really, really damn important. Like I understand that they've played teams that have been missing some guys and whatnot, but at the end of the day, you're still in these late game situations. You're against teams that have been shooting well in that individual game, that feel like they have a chance. They, in some of these games, it's been against teams that do have good defenders on the court that can make them work. And they are consistently getting quality looks in those situations. And I think that is one of those kind of night and day differences that we really wanted to see from this group.
Yeah, and like the reality is they're getting great looks against everyone they play against. They got great looks against the Knicks. They got great looks against the every tough matchup they've had. They haven't played a tremendous amount of clutch time, so it's like there is a degree of small sample here, but even okay, like the Warriors game, where I know that game's an ass kicking, but they got it down to 19-18, and Darius just comes out and they run a great set. Darius ices the game with 2 straight threes. Like, I know that that's not a clutch situation. That's not going to register on NBA.com. But like it was an important part of the game to say, all right, no, we're done here.
Yeah.
So like I just, if I was seeing more evidence where it felt really uncomfortable, then maybe I'd be like, oh yeah, it is, of course you're able to score in the clutch on a skeleton 76ers team, but like it's just been too consistent.
Yeah. And they have played a decent number of clutch minutes. Like they're 13th in the NBA in terms of clutch minutes played. They've played 24 this season. They are 6-0 in those situations. And going back to the pace conversation, they're 22nd in terms of clutch pace for NBA teams. Pace of about 97. Like that's not terrible. Like I'm okay with that pace. I don't think they're
yielding they're getting advantages. That's what matters.
Yes.
They're not just attacking a set defense.
Yeah. And the offensive rating in those minutes, again, 24 minutes, things are wild there, but they have an offensive rating of 149.1.
Well, that tracks because it feels like they haven't, that's 1.49 points per possession, basically. Yeah. And that feels about right. Feels like they score every single time they go down.
Yeah. Like it's good. Like, and they have a high assist ratio in those moments. So it's not just one guy creating in isolation and taking the shots themselves. You've had kind of those possessions where Darius is rolling to the basket and generating looks for Allen, for Mobley. You have those kind of spray out, kick out passes when the defense is collapsing. And I just feel like, especially when Mobley's healthy, because clearly he wasn't full bars tonight. But when you have 3 guys that can generate offense and can initiate offense, I just feel like that makes you so much more dangerous. And, I think there's a big part of why they close with Karis LeVert in a lot of these games, because he is someone that gives them that playmaking.
I'm getting excited for Max to get back.
I'm excited for Max to get back too, but that's a story for another day. But I think Karis has earned closing in a lot of these situations, and I think the thing that we've seen from Kenny is he values playmaking. Like when things get gummed up for the Cavs, he defaults to 3 guard sets pretty frequently. Like he will get Ty Jerome out there with Donovan Mitchell and Darius.
Look at what happened.
He will
the Warriors that won a title. That's what they did. They ran a lot of Steph, Jordan, Poole, Clay.
Yeah, and even going beyond that, when you look at some of those original teams, like those strength in numbers teams, when the offense was gummed up and they weren't able to, get shots to fall, it wasn't, all right, the priority wasn't let's get shooters out there. It was let's get playmaking out there. Let's get Sean Livingston. Let's get Leandro Barbosa. Let's get, these guys that maybe aren't good 3-point shooters, but are going to be able to create for themselves and others. And, let's up the pace. Like it's that kind of mentality. And I think that's something that we're seeing with these 3-guard lineups. I think, even though I haven't loved the Craig Porter Jr. minutes, I think that's the intention behind it. Of, all right, let's get the pace up. Let's get the playmaking up. Let's get playmakers on the court. And I think that's been a big part of their success. And part of why, as you pointed out on your podcast there on Hoops Tonight, which I thought, honestly, our listeners should go check that out. It was one of my favorite Cavs conversations of the year. But I thought one of your smartest points is just the ability of Strus to do all of those things at like a B+ level. And I think that's what's made him such a good compliment and someone where, the lineup data just screamed all of last year that they are a better team with Strus on the court. And I just can't wait to see him, hopefully healthy in a much better context.
Yeah, man. Again, we're not operating with a full deck yet. And like, that's just so exciting. I think about how good Strus was with Darius, with a very limited version of Darius Garland. What a great pairing that is going to be. Think about the Strus Mobley 2-man game that just was dominant to start the year last year that, we just haven't really seen. Think about, dude, those inverted Mobley Merrill pick and rolls, but with Strus setting the screen.
Yeah.
Like they just, man, they're going to have so many extra tools available to them. And like, yeah, I don't think this is the best version of this Cavs team, which is wild to say because they're 13-0.
I agree with you. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful because I think that he's a player that doesn't get enough respect on the NBA internet. And I'm a big fan of his game. But like this version of Evan Mobley, like what we've seen from him when he's at his best, like he might be better than Bam. Like, I think especially with the way that he can play off of Max Strus, like I just think that what he's able to do as a 7-foot creator rather than, a high post hub. Like I just feel like Mobley's attacking a lot more, and that the type of chaos, or how about this? What he can do at his best right now, I think, is better for Max Strus as a pairing and in a 2-man game than what Bam Adebayo was able to do. Because I think he creates a little more chaos. And, I think he's going to be able to capitalize on Mobley's passing and playmaking in those ways. And just the overall offense, as you said, like it was so much better just when Darius played last year. His minutes really, as much as people stress out about him playing small forward, which to me is ridiculous, like that has been where he's played the majority of his minutes. Like what tanked his numbers last year were the minutes where he was playing point guard. Like that's when the shooting splits really went to crap. Yeah, the shooting splits were awful when there was not a point guard on the court. And it was him basically, being forced to force the issue because no one else could generate offense.
Yeah. So man, it feels so good. I really think that they have survived one of the tougher stretches they have left going into that Boston game. Yeah, there's going to be trap games coming up. Yeah, Chicago, they certainly know not to doubt Chicago or overlook them based on their game on Monday against them. And then obviously the Hornets on Sunday. And I am just so hopeful that we get to see it's a TNT game in Boston. It's such an opportunity for a statement. I think that this team right now is getting a lot of love in the national conversation. You're hearing a lot of people say really nice things about them. They are clearly an easy to root for team, but right now I think that they are still considered to be a tier below the top contenders in the league.
Yep.
I feel like you go into Boston at 15-0 and you win on national television. It's going to be one of those like, oh no, it's time to put them in tier 1 with these other guys.
Here's the thing. My argument would be your mistake, what you said incorrect about, the whole assessment is that you made teams plural. Because there's top team, there's contending team right now in the Boston Celtics. I don't think that there's another team that deserves to be in a separate tier from the Cavs at this point. I don't think the Denver Nuggets are good enough this year to be put in that tier. I certainly don't think the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think the Oklahoma City Thunder, especially with the
I think the wider NBA commentary disagrees with you. I think they have a healthy Thunder team. Well, I'm talking about. What do you mean you don't care? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the national conversation.
I think that honestly, and this is once again the reality of 2024 and the internet at large is, we all make our own realities. We all see who we see who we see. I think the NBA at large agrees with me more than you here. I think
they
Boston,
don't.
I think they have Boston in a clear tier of their own, especially after this Chet injury. After this Chet injury, are you kidding me?
If they do, they clearly have OKC in their own tier above everyone else. They do not have the Cavs in OKC's tier.
And then Chet broke his hip, which it was awful. And I agreed with them, honestly. I had OKC up in that tier, but right now it's Boston.
Okay, whatever.
It's Boston. I am going to win on a technicality here, as I very often do. But I don't think winning against Boston is going to put them up there on that level just yet.
I think people will be more inclined to do so. They'll start to want to put them up there.
Right. And I think, once again, it's going to show what the Cavs can do from a problem-solving standpoint. What are they going to do against, the backcourt of Drew Holiday and Derek White? I thought they navigated that pretty well in the playoffs. I would expect them to navigate it well here, but who knows? Maybe Boston throws something at them that they're not expecting. It's still a team that can really put on the clamps defensively, that can really get the shots up. I think anything can happen in one game sample, including Boston losing to a Trae Youngless Atlanta Hawks. I don't want to, take too much meaning from it, but, I think right now we're starving for tests. Aren't we? That's what I want to see. I want to see the Cavs against the best. That's why I got excited for the Knicks game. That's why I got excited for the Lakers game. And,
also it's really important to say that the Warriors game being on a Friday night really killed us in the national conversation because, all these national media hanging out with their families who they love instead of recording podcasts about how great we are.
It was really the worst timing. It was really the worst timing. They had the best record in the Western Conference. All the podcasts that week were ramping up to, all right, Warriors are contenders again. Second best defense in the league. And the whole question for us is can the Cavs get a regular season offense, which, we have enough of a sample that says they were able to generate a great offense with two bigs on the court. The core four has been able to generate great offense in the regular season. We haven't got it to translate to the playoffs. And how it does against the best defenses in the league was going to be the biggest question. And how did it respond to the second best defense in the league at that time? A franchise record for points in the first half.
I gotta say, and I know you didn't listen. But I listened to Draymond Green's podcast. He just dropped a new episode.
Right. You know me well.
And he had Baron Davis on, and they did 7 or 8 good minutes on the Cavs. And Draymond was basically talking about how the offense was so sharp that he didn't know where to look. He didn't know where to go. We were popping the ball around so well that that he was not able to keep up. And the fact that there's a lot of self-aggrandizing on those kind of podcasts, but every now and again, that's why you listen to those, is to hear a guy go, oh man, I was not ready for how good that offense was. And that is exactly what Draymond Green, noted Cavaliers villain, had to say about our offense. And it was really fun to hear.
Well, and post-game, he said, they did Warriors things to us, basically. That was his summary. And, for someone like Draymond to come out and praise you, as much as I sports hate Draymond, I respect the hell out of him. I think that
basketball
he's a terrific
genius.
Player. He's a basketball genius, and he's someone that is not going to hand out respect lightly. When he said, Darius Garland was one of the hardest players to guard in the league. That was something that resonated for me. When, for him to make that comment after that game, and for Evan Mobley in particular, like, I didn't get to talk about that game on the podcast really, but like for Evan Mobley to be too much to handle for Draymond Green at various points in that game, like that's the type of stuff that's so exciting. And that's the type of stuff that we're not going to see what it looks like against Kristaps Porzingis on Tuesday, but that's the type of matchup that's really intriguing for me. And before we wrap this up, the one thing I got to mention when we talked about those clutch minutes is they have a great offense in those situations. They are undefeated in those situations. We feel great about their ability to generate good shots in those situations. And what else has been a factor? With the exception of one game, they've had both bigs on the court. And, that was one of the biggest questions. Even we had that question of, can you close with the two bigs on the court? And I think the thing that we're seeing is, as long as there's movement, as long as these guys are active, and as long as these guys are healthy, they are able to generate quality looks with all four of them on the court, no matter how good the defense is.
Listen, man, I could not believe that we all collectively crapped our pants as a basketball community about the Celtics shooting too many threes, and just yet another annual panic attack by the NBA watching community where they talk about all this hegemony of like, oh, every offense is the same, 3-pointers and foul drawing broke basketball. And like, then, I look at this league and I see every team has their own special kind of alien from his own special kind of planet from a different universe. And like the Cavs are putting up one of the best offenses in NBA history with a barely above average 3-point rate, with a way below league average free throw rate. And it just shows you there's so many roads up the mountain. In a lot of ways, it's a culmination of everything we've been arguing about for years with folks who have wanted this roster to get more conventional, talent level be damned. Mm-hmm. And like, to me, I've always felt like, just be the best version of you, and if you can be unique on the way and do something different from everyone else that makes you special, like, you should lean into what makes you special. And I feel like that's been one of the coolest things about Kenny, is even for an offensive guru, a guard guru, a guy who cut his teeth with a ton of spacing and really values a modern analytical approach. He thought, what's the best offense I could build out of the pieces I have? Not how can I shoehorn someone else's offense into my personnel. And that is why we have the best offense in the league. That's why they haven't lost. And like, that is why I think I'm higher on this team than I've ever been.
It reminds me of in Mike Breda's great book, Spaced Out, where he talked about basketball's holy war between the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets, where, it was two teams that really prioritized the three ball, but how they went about getting it was just so different. And I think about the difference between, that 18-2 stretch last year and particularly the 9-1 with Mitchell and Allen, where out of necessity, it was a lot of hero ball, right? Like, it's a lot of, all right, we have spacers standing out there. We have one playmaker that's running a pick and roll, and he's kicking out to these guys. The 3-pointers, like, they were taking more threes than we are right now. The Cavs currently are 16th in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game, and they had the best offense in the league. And, for people that complain about the importance of a 3-pointer and whatnot in today's game, and everyone plays the same, like you said, it's completely untrue. How teams go about generating those shots is so different. And I think what you see, and I've always been someone that largely has hated heliocentric basketball. I just don't think that
it's not fun to watch for me.
I don't think it's fun to watch. I don't think it's sustainable for the playoffs. I think, as someone that's played basketball, you just kind of have to understand that shooters, if they're standing around and only touching the ball when they're expected to take a shot, they're not going to be as involved, and they're not going to be in as rhythm. They're not going to be as, committed to the defensive end of the floor. I think what you're seeing with this brand of basketball that the Cavs are playing, it is night and day more entertaining to watch. I think it is more effective. I think it is part of why you are seeing a 10-man rotation that is all involved and playing at a high level, it's because they're all getting touches. They're all involved on every single possession. This is just a beautiful, beautiful brand of basketball. And I like, it's more similar to the Spurs and Warriors than it is to the Rockets and, you know, the Luka Mavs prior to adding Kyrie, right? Like, I just think that this is a really, really fun brand of basketball that throughout the slog of a regular NBA season is a lot of fun to watch. And I'm just really, really appreciative that, you know, we get to witness this team, man. Like we're not that far removed from 4 straight finals runs. We're not far removed from getting to watch one of the most entertaining point guards in the league in Kyrie Irving. And now we have Darius Garland, who is playing some of the most fun, aesthetically pleasing basketball that I've seen. In the last week here, he's passed Kyrie on the Cavs all-time list for 3-pointers in that game against the Bulls and assists in that Warriors game. Like, he's already getting up to the top of those levels. And we have someone like Donovan Mitchell. We have an Evan Mobley where we haven't seen a lot of guys like that. Like, I just feel really, really fortunate that we get to witness this era of Cavs basketball. And I'm excited for the future here.
Yeah, there was no guarantee it was going to come. You know, I was petrified that this team was going to be, headed to basketball Siberia. And
I was right.
And the fact that they turned it, first off, shut up. It was like literally the second he left, I was worried about that. And you had no idea. We didn't even have, we had barely had a draft yet. But like, I was really afraid of that. And the fact that they've turned it around the way they have, with high character guys that are easy to root for, with guys who, they spent the entire offseason locking up and, conceptually might be here for a long time. Like, that's really, really cool, really easy to root for, and really fun. So go Cavs, man. 82-0, 83-0. Can't forget the NBA Cup.
Very, very good correction. Well, we will be back on Monday, actually, instead of Sunday. A little deviation from our normal schedule because it is Grey Cup Sunday, baby. Winnipeg versus Toronto. Once again.
Come on, brother. Come on. Winnipeg Toronto's can't lose right now. The Jets are, 101 in the NHL. They can't lose. The Bombers Jets can't lose.
It's unbelievable. Yeah,
it's a big sports run for your boy.
It's pretty damn fun, and we're playing Toronto. Winnipeg playing Toronto once again. Toronto's quarterback broke his leg in the Eastern Final. So I'm feeling good about our chances here to complete the dynasty and win 3 and 5. But yeah, I might also be in a very dark place Monday. No matter what happens.
No, you're good, brother. We gotta keep the good vibes rolling.
Let's
go
keep the
Cavs,
good vibes
man.
going.
Let's go.
Let's get another championship here, baby. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasetown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasetownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.